Well, for more on the recent developments involving Russia, we're joined live by CTV Military Analyst, retired Major General David Fraser. Thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, this was some provocative moments over the weekend, and this is, I'm curious what your thoughts are. While this coup was, I guess, fairly unsuccessful, I imagine that there are some political wounds that will run deep inside the Kremlin. What's your take on this?
Well, first of all, this is all of Putin's making. He created Prigozhin and the Wagner group to do his evil bidding around the world, including Africa and Ukraine. And this discussion and this conflict has actually been brewing for months between Prigozhin and the defense minister and the defense chief, Gerasimov and Shoigu, and it resulted in an unprecedented mutiny on the weekend, where in fact Prigozhin was actually fighting for his life because he was under investigation, and here we are on Monday, where Putin's leadership is being shaken because of what's going on.
Well, when you look at the fact that, some of these, the members of Prigozhin's mercenaries, that they defected, and from what we're hearing that they're defected to Russia, does this embolden Putin at all? Does it make him look stronger? Or do you think that, a lot of his allies and even critics will say, well, this made him look weak?
Well, in fact, I think that makes Putin actually bruised and damaged to a degree, which makes him far, far more dangerous than ever before, because he's now going to get his leadership circle around him to support him. We've already seen that this morning with the prime minister and with the defense minister being shown to be loyal supporters of Putin, him reaching out to Qatar. So this actually makes Putin much, much more dangerous, if you can believe that. And the other thing is, for the Wagner group, it puts them really under a question mark of what's going to happen with Prigozhin. Is he a dead man walking? And for the leaders within the Wagner group, they have to now pledge their allegiance to Russian leadership. And there's going to be a lot of animosity with the Russian leadership and the Wagner group, because the Russians lost a number of planes, a number of pilots shot down by the Wagner group on the weekend. So this is bad news for the Russians. It's actually an opportunity for Ukrainians.
How does this change, if it does in any way, the dynamics of the war in Ukraine?
Well, the one thing it does change is you now got Russian leadership who are looking over their shoulder with a damaged leader, putting more pressure on them for more results on the ground. And for the Ukrainians and for President Zelensky, it offers an opportunity for them to press their attacks. Any gains that they have will actually have negative repercussions on the Russian side. So for the Ukrainians, they should press hard right now. What we should be looking for is a lot more activity, a lot more support for them by the West, because it's all bad news for the Russians and more pressure on Putin.
Prigozhin and his men, they came within about 125 miles of the capital. That's obviously very close. This could have been a major bloodshed. I'm curious, you mentioned if he could be a dead man walking. We know he's seeking exile right now in Belarus. What does this mean for this group? And how do you see the dynamics changing internally between some of these other mercenaries and the Kremlin?
Well, Prigozhin, the question right now is, when he goes off to Belarus, will he have any control over the Wagner group? I suspect the Russians will ensure that doesn't happen. They're just going to neutralize him from a voice point of view. And for the Wagner group, it really is, they're going to have, you either work for us or you're going to suffer the consequences of not having a job. And let's face it, mercenaries only respond to one thing, and that's their bank account. So this is a power struggle that is still unfolding inside of Russia. This is, a bad day for the Russians, but at the same time, Putin is just going to reassert his authority, and he still has about 400,000 troops surrounding him around Moscow with the National Guard. So he's long from being out of this fight. In fact, he's probably more in the fight today than he ever has been before, which is bad news for Russians.
Yeah, and lastly, President Putin is not one that likes to be look bad or weak in any single way. Do you expect that there's going to be some sort of inevitable retribution, towards Prigozhin, moving forward?
I think Prigozhin's going to be looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life. I think a lot of the Russian leadership in the circle are going to be, doubling down on their efforts to keep the boss happy. Uh, and for the Wagner group, the big question is, and the question is twofold. The Russians have had to use the Wagner group. They've been very important for their operations in Ukraine and Africa. What's going to happen to the Wagner group? Because let's face it, Bakhmut was in large part a success because of the Wagner group. Now that they don't have their leader with them anymore, can the Russians use the Wagner group as effectively as they have in the past? Lots of questions, and this only weakens the Russians with their efforts in Ukraine and, by extension, to a degree, in Africa.
CTV Military Analyst, retired Major General David Fraser. Always great to chat with you. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.